My name is Anna, and I thought I'd done everything right. For 18 years, every extra shift, every canceled vacation, every worn out pair of sneakers went into one place: the college fund for my daughter Mia. $199,000. That number was my private trophy, the proof that I had beaten the odds as a single mom. Then, one morning, I opened my banking app and felt the floor vanish beneath me. My joint savings account, the one I'd naively kept with my mother for security ever since I was 19, showed a balance of exactly zero. One single transaction, $199,000 withdrawn. Under authorized user, the name was hers, my mom. I drove to her house with my hands shaking on the steering wheel, replaying every sacrifice I'd made for that money. When I confronted her, my voice was low and deadly calm. "Where is Mia's college fund?" She didn't flinch. She actually laughed. "Thanks for funding your sister's wedding," she said, like it was some kind of joke, like she hadn't just burned my daughter's future to the ground. Then she added, almost casually, "And no, Anna, you're not invited. It's a small family event. You understand?" I smiled, but it felt like my face might crack. "Sure," I whispered. "I understand perfectly." Moments later, as I walked back to my car, my phone buzzed. My dad's name lit up on the screen. When I answered, all I heard was his voice breaking on the other end. He was crying. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about money. It was about everything my family had been hiding for years. Stick around until the end of this story, and don't forget to follow and subscribe, because this family revenge is about to expose secrets my mom never thought would see the light of day. I sat in my car in front of my mother's house, staring at the steering wheel as my dad sobbed into the phone. I'd never heard him like that before. "Anna, I didn't know she actually did it," he choked out. "She told me she was reallocating some family funds, but I never thought she meant your savings, honey." I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, my jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "Dad, it was my daughter's college fund. Every dollar I put in that account was for Mia. You knew that." There was a pause, just the sound of his uneven breathing. "Your mother said the account was still joint," he murmured. "She said you weren't using it, that we'd help Rebecca get her dream wedding and then figure things out later. I thought she meant she'd pay it back somehow." His words twisted in my chest like a knife. This wasn't just betrayal, it was premeditated. "Dad, you signed off on this?" I asked quietly. Another pause. "I didn't sign anything," he said, sounding smaller than I'd ever imagined. "Your mom handled it. She always has. I should have asked more questions. I'm so sorry, Anna." I closed my eyes and leaned my head back against the seat. My mother had opened that account with me when I was 19, right after Mia was born. "Put my name on it too," she'd said back then. "If something happens to you, I can protect the money for Mia." I was young, exhausted, and grateful. I never thought the person I trusted to protect the money would be the one to steal it. Growing up, money was my mother's religion. She'd grown up poor, always reminding us how she'd had to fight for every dollar. But somewhere along the way, her fear of poverty warped into an obsession with control. Money wasn't security to her, it was power. She decided who got help and who stayed desperate. I'd watched her bail out my younger sister Rebecca more times than I could count, paying off credit cards, helping with rent, always with the same excuse: "Rebecca just needs a little boost. She's the baby." Me? I got lectures about standing on my own 2 feet. And I did. I worked nights at the hospital, mornings at a tiny cafe when Mia was small. While my mother was buying designer bags on sale, I was calculating how many textbooks I could afford this month. So when I realized she'd used the joint account loophole to strip nearly $200,000 from my daughter's future and funnel it into a wedding I wasn't even invited to, something inside me snapped. Dad, I said slowly, did you know she never planned to invite me? Or Mia? His silence answered that question better than words. Finally, he whispered, she said it would be awkward with you there. Said you'd make things about yourself. But Anna, stealing the money? That's too far. Too far. As if there was a line she'd respected before this. I'm going to fix this, I told him, my voice steady now. I don't know how yet, but I'm not letting her get away with it. Not this time. After I hung up, I sat in that driveway for a long time, watching the curtains in her front window twitch like she was still peeking at me, still trying to decide whether I was a threat she needed to neutralize or a problem she could dismiss. For the first time, I looked back at my life and saw a pattern I'd been too tired to name. Every time I began to build something of my own, she found a way to take credit, take control, or take it away entirely. Not this time. Mia was 18. She'd cried with joy when she saw her projected college costs and realized we could actually afford it. How was I supposed to look her in the eye and tell her that her grandmother had gambled her future away on flowers, catering, and a white dress? That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and a notepad, writing down everything I knew about the account, every date, every deposit, every statement. I underlined one fact over and over again. The account had been created for Mia's education. I had the emails, the paper trail. My mother might have the money now, but I had something she'd never considered: evidence. And for the first time, I started thinking not like a scared daughter, but like a woman preparing for war. If you were in my place, would you confront your mother again, or go straight to a lawyer first? The next morning, I dragged myself to work on autopilot, my body going through the motions at the hospital while my mind replayed every conversation I'd ever had with my mother about family obligations. Between patients, I caught myself staring at the clock, counting down the minutes until I could talk to the one person who had never once made me feel small. Liam. Liam wasn't Mia's father, but he'd stepped into our lives like he'd always belonged there. He knew about the joint account. He knew how long I'd been saving. When he walked into my kitchen that evening with takeout bags and a worried look, I didn't even try to play strong. I told him everything. My mother's laugh, her dismissive, "Thanks for funding your sister's wedding," my dad's tearful phone call. Liam sat quietly as I spoke, his hands folded, his jaw tightening. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. "Okay," he said. "This is bad, but it's not hopeless." I let out a bitter laugh. "She took everything, Liam. How is that not hopeless?" He tapped the table between us. "Because you didn't just throw money in a box under her bed. You have records. You have proof that this was intended as a college fund for Mia. That matters." He was right. I'd kept every bank statement, every email confirmation when I transferred money into that account. At the time, it was just my way of keeping track. Now, it was a trail of evidence. "Step 1, Liam said, leaning forward. "We organize your documentation. Step 2, we talk to the bank. Step 3, we talk to a lawyer." I blinked. "A lawyer? You think this is a legal case?" He gave me a look. "Anna, she took $199,000 from a joint account that you funded almost entirely by yourself, with a clearly documented purpose: your daughter's education. She used it without your consent to fund someone else's wedding. At the very least, that's something the law will take seriously. At worst for her, it's fraud." The word fraud hung in the air between us. My mother, who loved to brag about her reputation and respectability at church and in the community, being investigated for fraud. I couldn't deny the small, vicious flicker of satisfaction that sparked in my chest. Still, a part of me hesitated. "She's my mom," I whispered. "Do I really want to drag her into court?" Liam's gaze softened, but his voice stayed firm. She stopped being just your mom when she stole your daughter's future. If you don't draw a line now, what else will she feel entitled to take? That night, we spread my documents out across the dining table. Old statements dating back to when Mia was in diapers, notes in my handwriting marking extra deposits. Overtime shift, Christmas bonus, tax refund. Every dollar had a story. Every story ended in the same place. My mother's smirking face, thanking me for paying for a wedding I was excluded from. I pulled up the online banking portal again and looked at the transaction details. The withdrawal had been processed at the branch where my mother knew all the tellers by first name. She probably walked in smiling, spinning some charming story about helping her struggling daughter manage her finances. The thought made my stomach turn. "Do you think she acted alone?" I asked Liam. "Or do you think Rebecca and Jason know?" He considered that. "My guess, Rebecca knows the money came from you in some vague way, but your mom probably framed it as, Anna is helping pay for the wedding. She owes the family." As for Jason, if he's smart and as involved in finances as you've said, he might know more than he lets on. I swallowed. Jason worked in finance. If he'd helped my mother move the money, that opened up a whole new angle. So I'm up against my own mother and a future son-in-law who knows how to hide money, I muttered. Perfect. Or, Liam countered, you're up against two people who think you're too soft to fight back. That's their mistake. Before bed, I texted my dad. "Dad, I need you to tell me everything Mom said about that account. Dates, phrases, anything. This is serious." He replied with just one sentence. "Whatever you decide, I'll back you this time. This time." The implication stung. All the times he hadn't backed me. All the times he'd chosen silence because it was easier than confronting the woman he lived with. But I clung to that small promise. I needed allies, even imperfect ones. As I lay in bed beside a sleeping Mia, watching her peaceful face, a new kind of anger settled into my bones. Not the wild, frantic rage from before, but something sharper, colder, calculated. My mother thought she'd won. She thought I'd scream, cry, then eventually move on, because family is more important than money. She had no idea that this time I was going to make sure her actions had consequences she couldn't charm her way out of. If someone you loved stole everything you'd built for your child, would you still worry about protecting their reputation? 2 days later, I took a personal day from the hospital and walked into the bank that had held my savings hostage for nearly 2 decades. Liam came with me, not saying much, just a steady presence at my side. The lobby smelled like polished wood and printer ink, like every other bank I'd ever been in. But today, the air felt heavier. When we sat down with the branch manager, I laid out my folder of documents on his desk. "This account was opened 18 years ago," I began, my voice steady. "In both my name and my mother's. It was created for one purpose: to fund my daughter's college education. I contributed almost all of the money you see here." I slid a highlighted statement across the desk, showing the final balance before the withdrawal. "Last week, my mother withdrew the entire amount without my knowledge or consent." The manager adjusted his glasses, scanning the papers. "Legally," he said carefully, "a joint account gives both parties the right to withdraw funds." I nodded. I'd expected that speech. "I understand that," I replied, "but I wanted on record that this was done against the intent and understanding of the person who funded the account. I want every detail of that withdrawal: who approved it, what ID was shown, what was said at the counter." He hesitated, then logged into his system. After a few minutes, he printed a report and handed it to me. "The withdrawal was done in person by Carla," he said. "She presented her ID and signed the form. It was processed as a legitimate transaction." No surprise there. My mother knew how to play by the rules just enough to avoid suspicion. Can you at least provide a notarized statement summarizing this? I asked. That she withdrew the funds from a joint account funded by me? The manager looked between me and Liam, then nodded. Yes, I can do that. As he prepared the document, Liam squeezed my hand under the table. It wasn't justice yet, but it was a piece of the puzzle. That afternoon, we met with a lawyer recommended by one of Liam's coworkers. Her name was Sandra, and she had the calm, sharp gaze of someone who'd seen every kind of family disaster. After listening to my story and flipping through my evidence, she leaned back in her chair. Legally, your mother had the right to access the funds, she said. My heart sank. Then she continued. But that doesn't mean she's safe from consequences. The key here is intent and documentation. You have emails where you explicitly refer to this account as your daughter's college fund. You have proof you were the primary contributor. If we can show that your mother misrepresented her reason for accessing the funds, or use them in a way that constitutes unjust enrichment, you may have a strong civil case. Civil, not criminal? I asked. She tapped her pen thoughtfully. At this stage, it looks more civil. Seeking restitution, potentially damages. However, if there's evidence she lied to bank staff, forged anything, or colluded with someone, say, your sister's fiancé, to conceal the source of the funds, it could edge into criminal territory. That would be up to law enforcement. The idea of my mother facing criminal charges left a bitter taste in my mouth. I didn't know if I wanted her in handcuffs. I just wanted Mia's future back. What about the wedding? I asked. It's in a few weeks. She used the money to pay for it. Sandra's eyes sharpened. Good. That gives us leverage. If we can prove that wedding vendors were paid from those funds, we establish a direct line from your savings to their event. Judges don't like to see someone blow through money that isn't theirs on luxuries. On the drive home, Liam and I sat in thoughtful silence. Finally, he said, You know, if Jason's involved in tracking finances for the wedding, we might not need to guess. We might be able to get invoices, transfers, even emails tying him and your mom together on this. How? I asked. He'll never just hand those over. Liam shrugged. Maybe not willingly. But people talk. Vendors talk. And your dad? He might know more than he realizes. That evening, I called my dad again. This time, I asked specific questions. When had my mother started talking about helping with the wedding? Did she mention amounts? Had she ever said where the money was coming from in exact terms? He hesitated more than once, clearly torn between loyalty and guilt. She said you weren't really using the account, he finally admitted. Said you were too practical to mind helping your sister. She kept saying, Anna will still figure something out for Mia. She always does. My chest burned. My mother had turned my reliability into a weapon against me. She counted on me being the responsible one, the one who would figure something out no matter what chaos she unleashed. After I hung up, I went to Mia's room. She was sitting at her desk, scrolling through college websites. I leaned against the doorway, suddenly unsure how to tell her. Hey, sweetheart, I said softly. Can we talk? She turned, her eyes bright. Did you get the financial aid estimates for state? I was just looking at dorm options. They're tiny, but kind of cute. The words lodged in my throat. I sat on the edge of her bed. Mia, something happened with your college fund. I told her the truth, every ugly detail. Her face went pale, then red, then pale again. Grandma took it? She whispered. All of it? I nodded, feeling my own eyes sting. I'm fighting to get it back. I've talked to the bank, a lawyer, your grandpa. I'm not giving up. But I didn't want you to dream about campuses and dorms without knowing what we're up against. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but she didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. She just said, in a small, shaken voice, I knew she liked Aunt Rebecca more. I just didn't think she'd sell my future for a party. That sentence broke something in me that my mother could never fix. That night, Mia fell asleep with her laptop still open to a picture of the campus she'd always wanted. I closed it gently and went back to the table where my documents lay. My mother had made a choice. Now I would make mine. If you were Mia, would you ever trust your grandmother again after something like this? The weeks leading up to Rebecca's wedding felt like living in a pressure cooker. Everywhere I turned, social media, extended family group chats, even random conversations at the grocery store, someone was talking about the big day. Photos of floral arrangements, venue sneak peeks, and dress fittings floated through my feeds like confetti. I blocked the group chats, muted half my contacts, but the wedding still seeped into my life like smoke under a door. My mother didn't reach out. Neither did Rebecca. The silence from their side was almost louder than the gossip I heard from everyone else. My dad, however, called more often. Sometimes just to check on Mia, sometimes to awkwardly ask how things were going with that lawyer. The guilt in his voice was constant. One evening, he let something slip that made my heart stop. "Your mom was bragging to one of the relatives," he said quietly. She said something like, "At least the wedding is fully covered. My girls might not always be grateful, but they'll thank me one day." I gripped the phone tighter. "Did she say how it was covered?" He sighed. "She said, Anna's savings were just sitting there. Better to use them for something beautiful than let them gather dust. She said it like she was doing you a favor. Something beautiful." My teeth ground together. My daughter's education reduced to centerpieces and a DJ. With Sandra's guidance, we focused on building a clear chain between the stolen money and the wedding. Liam helped me compile a spreadsheet tracking every large payment my mother had made in the months leading up to the withdrawal. The pattern was obvious. Big transfers to vendors, often just days after deposits from my paychecks. When Sandra saw the spreadsheet, her eyebrows rose. "Judges love patterns," she said, "and they really love clear timelines. This is good." We also started quietly reaching out to vendors. I posed as a family member helping coordinate finances and asked for duplicate invoices for my records. You'd be amazed how quickly people will email you sensitive information if you sound just stressed and polite enough. One florist even forwarded a message thread between my mother and Rebecca, where my mother wrote, "Don't worry about the cost, darling. Your sister's college stash is finally good for something fun." That email became Exhibit A. Meanwhile, Mia grew quieter. She kept her grades up, still went to school, still worked her part-time job, but she avoided any conversation that involved the future. One night, I found her deleting college newsletters from her inbox unread. "Hey," I said softly. "Why are you doing that?" She shrugged, not meeting my eyes. "What's the point, Mom? We can't afford it. I'll just go to community college and figure it out later." My heart twisted. "Mia, we're fighting this. And even if the worst happens and we don't get every dollar back, you are not giving up on your dreams because your grandmother made a selfish choice." She looked up at me, eyes red. "But what if we lose?" she whispered. "What if she gets away with it, and I'm the one who pays?" I had no easy answer, so I told her the only truth I could offer. "If we lose, you'll still have me. You'll still have Liam. You'll still have your own strength. We'll find another way. But if we don't fight at all, she definitely gets away with it. And I refuse to teach you that it's okay for people to steal from you just because they share your last name." Around that time, word began to spread in the family that Anna is making a fuss about money. An aunt texted me, "Is it true you're trying to sue your own mother?" with a shocked emoji. I replied, "It's true she emptied my daughter's college fund for a wedding. I'm trying to fix that." She didn't respond, but a cousin did. "Good," he wrote. "Someone needed to stand up to her years ago." The wedding RSVP never came for me or Mia. Officially, we were ghosts. Uninvited. Erased. But I had no intention of staying away. Not because I wanted to ruin a party, but because that was the one place everyone involved would be in the same room. My mother, my sister, Jason, extended family, all the people who had quietly benefited from my silence for years. I didn't tell many people my plan, only Liam, Sandra, and eventually, my dad. When I told him I was going to confront Mom at the wedding with evidence, his first reaction was panic. "Anna, you'll cause a scene," he said. "It'll humiliate everyone." "She already humiliated me," I replied calmly. "She humiliated Mia. The difference is, when I speak, I'll be telling the truth." He was quiet for a long time. Then he asked in a tired voice, "What do you need from me?" "The truth," I said. "And when it comes down to it, I need you not to stand between us. Not this time." As the wedding day crept closer, the nervousness in my stomach battled with a cold, focused rage in my chest. I printed every document Sandra said might matter: bank statements, screenshots of the account history, highlighted invoices from vendors, and that horrifying email about my college stash being used for something fun. I slid them into a neat folder and slipped it into my bag. On the morning of the wedding, as I zipped up a simple dress, nothing flashy, nothing that could be twisted into jealous theatrics, I looked at myself in the mirror and realized something. I wasn't the scared daughter anymore, begging for crumbs of approval. I was a mother about to walk into a room full of people who thought they knew the story and show them the real one. If your entire family was gathered to celebrate while your future was being burned as fuel for their happiness, would you walk away quietly or walk in with the truth? The venue looked like something out of a magazine: white chairs in perfect rows, fairy lights wrapped around trees, flowers cascading from every possible surface. It was the kind of wedding people posted about for weeks. As Liam and I walked up the path, I could feel eyes following us. We weren't supposed to be there. That was exactly why I'd come. My dad met us near the entrance, his tie slightly crooked, his eyes tired. "You look beautiful," he said, voice hoarse. "Thank you for coming." "You might not be saying that later," I replied, managing a small, humorless smile. He swallowed hard. "I'll tell the truth if anyone asks me direct questions," he promised. "I owe you that much." The ceremony itself was a blur. I watched from the back as Rebecca walked down the aisle in a dress that probably cost more than my car, her face glowing as if the world had never handed her a consequence. My mother sat in the front row, chin lifted, radiating satisfaction. I stared at the back of her head, thinking of the email where she joked about my savings. My fingers tightened around the folder in my lap. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the crowd erupted in applause. I clapped too, but not for the same reasons. I wasn't celebrating their union. I was acknowledging the moment before everything changed. At the reception, the music was loud, the food was lavish, and the bar was open. People laughed, danced, made toasts. My mother moved around the room like a queen at court, accepting compliments on how spectacular everything was. She didn't notice me at first, tucked near the edge of the room with Liam and my dad. "You don't have to do this," Liam murmured beside me. "Yes," I said quietly. "I do." The DJ invited everyone to quiet down for speeches. Rebecca and Jason took their seats at the front table, flanked by my mother and a few close friends. The best man spoke, then the maid of honor. Laughter, clinking glasses, tears. Then the DJ said, "If anyone else would like to share a few words, now's the time." I stood up. The room shifted. Conversations paused. A few whispers rippled through the crowd. I walked toward the center with my heart pounding in my ears, but my steps never faltered. "I'd like to say something," I said, taking the microphone. The DJ, sensing drama, handed it over with a grin. My mother's smile froze on her face when she saw me. "Anna," she said through her teeth, "this isn't the time." "Actually," I replied calmly, "it's the perfect time. You see, everyone here has been talking about this beautiful wedding, about how generous my mother is for making it all possible. I think they deserve to know how she paid for it." A hush fell over the room. I could feel 100 eyes on me. Rebecca shifted uncomfortably, glancing at our mother. Jason's expression tightened. "Anna, stop," my mother snapped, her voice dripping with warning. "Don't ruin your sister's day." I opened my folder and held up the first page, a bank statement, enlarged and printed clearly. 18 years ago, I began, I opened a savings account in my name and my mother's name. It was meant to protect money for my daughter's college education. Every overtime shift I worked, every tax refund, every extra dollar went into that fund. I walked slowly as I spoke, letting the pages catch the light as I flipped. 6 days ago, that account had $199,000 in it. Then, one transaction. A full withdrawal, processed by Carla. I pointed the paper at my mother. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My mother's face had gone pale, but she tried to recover. "This is a private matter," she hissed. "You're embarrassing yourself." "No," I said softly but clearly. "You're embarrassed because I'm telling the truth in front of people you wanted to impress." I held up another page, an invoice from the venue, marked paid. The timeline is very clear. Right after the withdrawal, payments were made to this venue, the florist, the caterer. Another paper, the florist's email thread, printed and highlighted. I read aloud. "Don't worry about the cost, darling. Your sister's college stash is finally good for something fun." "That's what you wrote, Mom." The room erupted into whispers. Someone near the back muttered, "Oh my God." Jason stood slowly, eyes fixed on the document. "Is this real?" he asked, voice tight. "You used your granddaughter's college fund for our wedding?" My mother's mask finally cracked. "I did what needed to be done for this family," she snapped. "Anna would have wasted that money on some out-of-state school. Mia can get loans. This wedding is once in a lifetime." Mia, standing beside Liam near the back, made a small wounded sound. My chest burned. "You didn't even invite us," I said, my voice shaking now. Not from fear, but from fury. "You stole my daughter's future, spent it on a party we weren't welcome at, and laughed about it." I turned to the room. "You all should know that the generosity you've been praising came out of a girl's education and a single mom's sacrifices." Jason looked sick. "Carla," he said slowly, "did you tell me this money was from a joint account with Anna?" She tried to brush it off. "It's all family money. What does it matter where it came from?" His jaw clenched. "It matters if it's stolen." That word, stolen, hung in the air like a verdict. My dad stepped forward then, voice trembling but clear. "Anna's telling the truth," he said. "That account was meant for Mia's college. Carla knew that. We all did." The room shifted again. Now eyes looked at my mother with something sharper than curiosity. Judgment. Disgust. Rebecca's face crumpled. "Mom, is that why you told me not to invite Anna? So she wouldn't find out?" My mother opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. For the first time, she looked cornered, fragile, small. "I did what I had to," she whispered. "I'm the only one who ever thinks about this family." "No," I said, dropping the last paper onto the table in front of her, a copy of the preliminary complaint Sandra had drafted, ready to file. "You're the only one who thinks your desires matter more than anyone else's future." Most people would have stopped there, but I wasn't most people. Not anymore. I looked at Mia, at Liam, at my dad, then at the guests. "I'll be pursuing this legally," I said. I won't let her bury this under family drama or guilt. And I won't let my daughter pay the price for my mother's greed. Then I handed the microphone back to the DJ, who looked stunned. For a moment, the room was frozen. Then, everything fractured at once. Voices rising, chairs scraping, Rebecca crying, Jason shouting quietly at my mother. The fairy lights still glowed. The music was still playing faintly in the background. But the illusion was shattered. If you were standing in that room, would you side with the woman who paid for your champagne, or the one who paid with her child's future? I walked out of the reception hall into the cool evening air, my hands still trembling as adrenaline slowly leaked out of my system. Liam caught up to me first, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "You were incredible," he said quietly. "You didn't scream, you didn't fall apart, you just told the truth." Behind us, the chaos continued. Raised voices, hurried footsteps, someone crying loudly, probably Rebecca. I didn't turn around. For the first time in days, the knot in my chest loosened. A moment later, Mia reached me. Her eyes were red, but she looked lighter. "You did that for me," she said, almost in awe. "I did it for both of us," I replied. "But yeah, mostly for you." She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "Even if we never see a dollar of that money again," she whispered, "I'm glad everyone knows who she really is now." In the days that followed, the fallout was brutal. My mother called me once, leaving a voicemail full of accusations. I was ungrateful, dramatic, cruel for humiliating her. She insisted she'd only ever tried to help, and that family shouldn't drag each other into court. I saved the voicemail. Sandra smiled when she heard it. "This makes her mindset very clear," she said. "She still thinks she's entitled to your sacrifices. Judges don't like entitlement when it hurts children." Jason, on the other hand, called to apologize. "I didn't know," he said earnestly. "She told me she'd been saving for years for both her daughters and that you'd agreed the money could go toward the wedding. I never would have gone along with it if I'd known the truth." I believed him, mostly because he'd spent the reception looking like he wanted to crawl under the table. "What happens now?" I asked. "Wedding's already happened. The money's gone." "Not all of it," he said, surprising me. "Some vendors haven't been fully paid yet. And if your case goes through, well, Carla might not be the only one facing questions about financial misrepresentation." There it was again. That hint that this could bleed into criminal territory. A few weeks later, the lawsuit was filed officially. Anna versus Carla, seeking restitution of the $199,000 plus damages for emotional distress and unjust enrichment. The family chat exploded when the notice reached my mother's mailbox. Half the relatives took her side immediately, parroting her lines about airing dirty laundry and disrespect. The other half stayed silent publicly but sent me private messages. "She took my college fund too back then, just not as much," one cousin confessed. Another wrote, "She's always played favorites. I'm glad someone finally drew a line." My dad ended up staying with a friend for a while. "She says I betrayed her by not shutting you down," he told me. "But I spent 30 years watching her hurt people and calling it love. I'm tired, Anna." I didn't know what would happen to their marriage, but for the first time, I believed my dad might finally choose peace over proximity. Mediation was tense. My mother arrived in a carefully chosen outfit, her hair immaculate, her eyes cold. She looked smaller somehow, though, like some of the air had leaked out of her ego since the wedding. She offered a partial settlement at first, trying to spin it as a misunderstanding. "I'll return some of the money over time, interest-free," she said. "We can work out a schedule. No need to drag this through court." Sandra's voice was smooth, but unyielding. "Full restitution," she replied. "Plus, at least some compensation for the lost time and emotional damage to Anna and Mia. Your client didn't borrow this money. She treated it like her own." My mother kept glancing at me, as if waiting for me to fold, to soften, to say, "It's okay, Mom, let's just move on." I didn't. Eventually, when the mediator left the room briefly, she leaned forward and whispered, "You're really willing to destroy your own mother over money?" I met her eyes steadily. "You destroyed my daughter's future over a party," I said. "This isn't about money anymore. It's about consequences." In the end, faced with the strength of our documentation and the looming threat of a judge who might be far less patient with her than a mediator, she caved. The settlement required her to liquidate some assets, take out a loan, and downsize her lifestyle dramatically. The house she'd once bragged about at every family gathering went on the market. The designer handbags disappeared. She cried publicly about her ungrateful daughter, forcing her into financial ruin, but privately, she paid. Every payment was wired into a dedicated account under my name only, with Mia as the sole beneficiary upon turning 21. This time, there were no joint signatures, no loopholes, no room for misunderstandings. The first time I logged into the new account and saw the balance climbing back up, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself in weeks: hope. It would take time and interest and careful planning, but there was a real chance Mia could still go to the school she'd dreamed of. When I told her the case was settled, she stared at me for a long moment. So, she had to sell her house? The one she always bragged about? I nodded. "Actions have consequences," I said, "even for grandmothers." Mia was quiet, then said softly, "I don't feel sorry for her. Is that bad?" I shook my head. "No, that's honest." Months later, standing on Mia's future campus for an orientation visit, I watched her turn in a slow circle, taking in the buildings, the energy, the buzzing possibility in the air. "We're really doing this," she breathed. "After everything, I'm actually here." I squeezed her hand. "You are," I said, "because you earned it. And because this time, we didn't let someone else decide what you were worth." As for my relationship with my mother, it never really recovered. We went low contact, polite messages on holidays, occasional updates passed through my dad. She still tells anyone who will listen that I took her to court over a misunderstanding. But the people who matter know the truth, and more importantly, so do I. I used to think being a good daughter meant absorbing harm and calling it love, forgiving without boundaries, sacrificing until there was nothing left. Now I know better. Being a good mother meant standing up to my own mother to protect my child, even when it was messy, even when it hurt, even when people judged. Especially then. If your parent showed you over and over again that their comfort matters more than your future, would you keep forgiving? Or would you finally teach them what consequences feel like?